All right, Brad Marshall. What does he have to say? What does he have to say about fat? I guess he did the croissant diet. Anyway, my name is Ryan. This is High Carb Generator. Welcome back to my channel. Today, I'm going to be reviewing this Brad Marshall. Whatever. I still to this point haven't actually found one of his videos, but we'll be hopping into the computer and I'll be reacting to whatever video I can find. People have been asking me about this guy quite a bit lately. I thought he had a channel. I can't find it. I've seen a lot of interviews with him, so it kind of reminds me of Georgie Dinkoff, who doesn't really have a channel. He just does interviews. So I'm going to hop into the computer here. We're going to review the video, do a reaction or whatever, and then I will send it out. Anyway, here we go. All right, so here we are in the computer. I'm going to watch this. I really couldn't find an actual channel of his. I got my special hair here, just for the occasion. So let's get started. This is a long ass video. I'm not watching all of this. Probably won't even watch that much of it. And he's dirty. All right, matched my hairstyle. Let's get started here.
Holds it all together, right? Because the ROS theory of obesity and SCD1 and reductive stress, like they're all tied into metabolic rate, right? Somehow or another. And
all these names for everything.
You know, more and more, the more I learn and look,
the more and more I hear these stupid ass names.
You know, it is feeling like recently I've been writing about reductive stress, and I do think that there's something there.
I mean, the more of this names and everything, if they give things, the more and more they charge, the more and more the supplements they add. And I know nothing about this guy. I'm not saying he sells supplements, but damn, I mean, that's a lot of terminology here.
And it's probably just availability of NAD plus that is really at the kind of like that is like sort of the master controller.
It's so theta, alpha, bra.
It's really interesting how the different
capital data
are affecting the NAD plus levels.
Man, I still can't.
You know, and it's really multifaceted how it all works. It's kind of crazy, you know. Part of it is generating ROS, right? And so I don't know how technical your reader or listeners are, but you know, so ROS in the beginning, when I started writing the ROS theory of obesity, and like I say, obviously I was introduced to that concept by Peter.
Sorry, been occupied.
And
yeah,
you know, when I was originally writing that, I was thinking about ROS, our reactive oxygen species.
You know, the only thing that I could really find about this guy is he liked croissants with butter on them. So I don't know. I was really hoping to find a shorter video of this, something that like just gets to the point. Not all this terminology, acronyms like a government. You know, I don't know.
Basically, what happens is in the mitochondria, you know, we're basically transferring electrons from the foods that we eat into this electron transport chain, and it makes ATP. But some of the
electrons, take your creatine, folks.
Electrons come back out, and they combine with oxygen to make something called superoxide, which, you know, I like to make and do a little cartoon.
Man, he's all over the place, like me, man. Maybe he's got like some, like injuries, former injuries.
Figure.
Man, I'm loving this hair. Let me know down in the comment section.
And he's got like
good hairstyle.
He's got a cape because he's like Superoxide. He's like Superman, but he's got a mohawk because he's a free radical. And you know, anyway,
no mohawk is touching this. I mean, no mohawk, no way.
That's what Superoxide is in my head, is that little cartoon character. And so, but that anyway. So those electrons that you know, ping back out of the electron transport chain make superoxide, and that gets pretty rapidly converted into hydrogen peroxide. And
speaking of, if you have an illness, if you have the cancer, if you have anything else, supposedly you can get like this food grade hydrogen peroxide, put it in a bottle, and do like puffs of it like 2 or 3 times a day, and everything goes away. I saw it the other day. Haven't tested it, but yeah.
Sort of neat thing about hydrogen peroxide is it's both a a reactive oxygen species, which is to say that it has the ability to oxidize things, but it also is soluble in water and it's soluble in fat, which means that it can just diffuse out of the mitochondria in a way that superoxide cannot do, because superoxide has a negative charge and it can't go through a fatty membrane.
Yep.
And so hydrogen peroxide winds up being the thing that is building up.
Interestingly enough, if you take, and I don't know if it works for all enzymes, but I know it does work for pyridine enzymes, which I still think I have some. I don't really, everybody thinks that I take them all the time, or some people anyway. I don't, it's just once in a while. But if you take them and you put them in like oatmeal, for example, you know how thick oatmeal is. If you put these enzymes in them, it just completely turns the liquid, and what's coming off of it is hydrogen peroxide. It's kind of a crazy process.
Or not in the cell, and when it does build up, certain enzymes are activated or deactivated by the buildup of hydrogen peroxide, such as insulin signaling, such as certain molecules in or certain enzymes.
So maybe all you have to do to cure IR is just those puffs of hydrogen peroxide.
A cycle, I believe aconitase in the TCA cycle can be deactivated if hydrogen peroxide builds up too much. And so, I took what do they call it? Cancer. There's a better word for that. Oncology at Cornell.
Man, he looks like I did in my damn live yesterday. I couldn't remember shit.
It's going to age me a bit, but I think it was probably 1996. And, back then, free radicals were just, they were dangerous. They caused cancer. Bad. They were bad. Right. And so then reading Hyperlipid, it gets you thinking, you're like, oh, well, there's got to be more to this. They're not just bad. They're actually playing this interesting physiological role. Right. And so I was thinking about these free radicals, superoxide.
I really want to know what he has to say about fat. I don't even, because he didn't put chapters or timelines in here. So I really have no way of
signaling molecules
going to that.
But then, as I've learned more and more and more, I've thought a lot more about the overall redox balance of the cell, right? And so now you have the mitochondria, and so the one of the big things that definitely happens is that saturated fat drives more ROS production in the mitochondria than do unsaturated fats. And really that means all unsaturated, like oleic acid, monounsaturated fat drives way less ROS than does saturated fat. And so that's a key switch. And of course, with the SCD1 theory of obesity, SCD1 is this enzyme and it just converts saturated fat to monounsaturated fat. And so it's controlling the ratio of fats, and it's essentially controlling how much of this superoxide we produce when we're burning fat. Yep. And so that is having this downstream effect of...
I normally comment, but I'm listening. I'm here. My hair. Shit. I just hit the timeline.
But the cell keeps like a separate pool of NADPH from NADH and uses them for different things, right? And so I was like, okay, well, if every time there's a hydrogen peroxide, what happens is glutathione reductase takes an NADPH and it converts it to an NADP plus, and it uses that. So the NADPH is getting oxidized and the glutathione is getting reduced, because in a redox reaction, one thing's always getting reduced and one thing's always getting oxidized. And that's done by the enzyme glutathione reductase. And bam, now you've got your glutathione that's ready to remove another hydrogen peroxide, and you have this NADP plus.
Yep.
And I'm like, okay, but right, somewhere in the cell, well, and then what happened is the guy,
I have no idea.
I'm gonna space out his name. It'll come to me. Natambi is his name. He's done a lot of the work with SCD1, and he came out with a great paper in 2020.
If somebody has a really good video from this guy, like that just is like 20 minutes or something like that of what he thinks, instead of like, because this is probably very interesting, but like 2.5 hours, I can't do it.
20. And so the thing about SCD1 is they made these mice that don't have this enzyme SCD1, and so therefore they can't convert their saturated fat to monounsaturated fat. Yep. And the cool thing about these mice was that they have really high metabolic rates and they're totally resistant to obesity. And the only difference between them and normal mice is they literally just can't make monounsaturated fat. And so their body fat is very saturated when you look at it. And so they came out with this paper that showed that those high metabolic rate mice that didn't have SCD1 have a very high level of NAD plus. And so
I've been hearing so much about this NAD lately.
So I knew that you know, I knew
but the whole mice thing doesn't always translate to humans. A lot of the times it doesn't.
The way that we detoxify the hydrogen peroxide is by creating, it creates NADP plus. And I knew that mice who only have saturated fat, who therefore presumably are generating a lot of hydrogen peroxide, had a ton of NAD plus, right? So you're like, well, there's got to be something that's that is taking that NAD plus from getting rid of the hydrogen peroxide and converting it back to, taking the NADP plus that we get from getting rid of the hydrogen peroxide and converting it to NAD plus, because they're very similar things. I was like, there's got to be an enzyme that does it somewhere. And I was just like Googling, and I looked at a bunch of different things, and there's some redundant ways it probably happens, but
I'm sorry, this is not even a reaction video. This is me staring at a screen video.
Finally, I stumbled across this thing called NNT, and I was like, this is it. So NNT sits in the membrane right next to the electron transport chain, and it actually uses the proton gradient as fuel, and it takes the NADP plus from getting rid of the hydrogen peroxide, and it gives us back NAD plus. And so what it does is it maintains the pool of NADPH, and it gives us back NAD plus. And so that was the key, like the eureka moment that like tied the whole system, because I knew there something had to be going on there. I'm like, right, because you're looking at the thing and you're like, okay, well, it's the hydrogen peroxide is making all.
I don't know. I understand kind of what he's saying, but I don't think a lot of people are. So this might be not the greatest video. Like I said, I really wish he had like a Cliff Note video.
Well, this NADP plus, but then, this guy's.
Does Cliff Notes even still exist? I'm sure they do. Most people probably know what that means.
There's got to be a connector here. There's got to be an enzyme doing this, and and NNT is. There's a community of people doing research about it, and Cody Smith in North Carolina is one, and like he has some great papers out there. And he is really the one. He has this fantastic paper where they show that basically NNT is capable of, or normal cells with NNT are capable of getting rid of like 70% of hydrogen peroxide generated in the mitochondria before it ever leaves the mitochondria. In a normal functioning system, it's a very efficient system of converting those, the reactive oxygen species back to NAD plus. Yep. And the NAD plus, of course, is what drives our metabolism forward. And so, it's a nice little.
So far what I've gotten is that we want NAD plus to increase our metabolic rate.
System, once you figure it out, but yeah, it took some. It took a lot of searching. I'm like, yeah.
Well, one of the things that I I mean, when I read this about this latest part on reductive stress, to me, it really did feel like kind of put a bow on it, at least a little bit. Because when I know you are like mostly focused around like obesity, and
Yeah.
that has been like my number one thing interest with metabolism and obesity.
Right.
And all roads to me seem to lead to thermogenesis and mitochondrial uncoupling. And people who are obese and can't get out of it, something is going wrong where they're not doing the thermogenesis and they don't get the mitochondrial uncoupling to release energy, excess energy as heat versus
Right.
storing excess energy as fat. And it had bothered me for many, many years.
You know, but that doesn't make us 100% sense to me because, man, I burn a lot of heat, man, like a lot of heat.
Be like, but why? Like, what is the switch that makes someone like? Because I feel like there's a lipostat, right? And if I starve myself right now, my body's gonna do a bunch of things to make sure I eat more and I get my body fat back up high.
Right.
And the light switch should work the other direction too. We get fat, we put leptin starts pumping out more. There's these mechanisms that should get us back down. And I'm always like, once we get to a point, it seems like the body wants to keep putting on more fat. And like, to me, it doesn't make sense. And to me, that's like broken metabolism. But I love how you reframe that, because I agree, is this may not be pathology, but this may be by design, metabolic design of, I call them like a hibernating metabolism.
Exactly.
Before,
how long do you hibernate for before, you become my 600-pound life?
Which I found, which really, it does like connect all this together, because it's like,
it does, right? Because now you're like, oh, there's actually a reason that it's all like this.
Exactly. Because usually I'm like, biology's not doing something to kill us like crazy, right?
Right. It's trying to help us get through winter, know. And what you start to see is that in a lot of these systems, once things start to point in the direction of fattening, there's all these positive feedback loops that just keep pushing it in that direction. It's like SCD1 creates monounsaturated fat, and monounsaturated fat increases SCD1. You know what I mean? So and normally with enzymes, enzymes are inhibited by their end product because.
All right, you know what? This is just too much. I'm probably still going to put this video out there just because I want to find another one. And hopefully anybody who watches this actually has a video of him, like cliff notes, like I said, because this is just a lot, like a lot. I don't know. Maybe I can actually figure out how to contact this guy, this Brad Marshall, and interview him. I think that might be even better, because I would try to get cliff notes out of him. I love the 2.5 hours because there's probably a lot of good information in that. But you got bring it down a little bit, to layman's terms. Anyway, I'm gonna hand you out of the computer here. Sorry, this video is kind of a dud, but it kind of does point out the fact that some of us, who really struggle to get weight off, there's an actual reason why. But I want to get more to the bottom of what this guy's trying to say. But anyway, in this video, I just I don't think it's going to happen. So if you did make it this far, thank you, and I'm going to send it out of the video. All right. So anyway, because I didn't see the video before I did this part, I don't really have anything to add. But hopefully you liked it. Thanks for watching. If the video was good, give it a like, subscribe, and share it with other people. And I'll talk to you in the next video.